Shalom, shalom. Welcome, peace and blessings. Welcome everybody to the Fourth Angels Learning Center. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. My name is Jadiel. Today we're going to be touching on something that's very important. It's dealing with grief, overcoming grief, overcoming paralyzing pain, especially painful thoughts, painful memories, sometimes painful situations that you're currently in. So I want to discuss what that actually is, how the enemy utilizes our thoughts, how the enemy utilizes our situation to give us ideas that actually would deter us from believing in the truth, from trusting in Yah's ways, trusting in how he actually will deliver, to deter our minds from trusting how he will comfort us. Even something as simple as when people are going through grief, the enemy utilizes it to teach a false idea about how far away Yah is. I mean, we see with the story of Job where his friends was indicating to him that he has separated himself from Yah because of his, heinous sins. And then they said because of the type of situation he was in, how much heinous he was of crimes was Job actually guilty for. So we want to kind of be more sober minded when it comes to dealing with grief or dealing with grieving situations. And the first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that our minds are not prone to trusting. Situations cause us to distrust. Situations cause us to do it ourselves. It causes us to handle it ourselves. And when you're dealing with situations of the heart and of the mind, it's not good to isolate yourself and deal with it yourself. The reason why is because the wisdom that we need don't it's not innate in us. It doesn't originate in our minds. Wisdom comes from Yah, and He says, if anybody needs wisdom, come to Him, and He gives to us freely. And in these moments of grief, there's wisdom that's needed. There's comfort that's needed. But the comfort comes from a trust. It comes from a belief in something else. The mind is put at ease when the mind is putting their trust in something else. So we're gonna take a look at a couple of the promises that Yah gives us in dealing with grieving situations, or it could be anything. Sometimes it's not really about a death, but it could be. Sometimes it could be about just a situation, your relationship, just your child, whatever it could be, whatever causes you grief. Now, when that grief comes, the enemy is going to try to utilize it to cause you to feel alone. There's a alone feeling. There's the, uh, I would say, displaced, you feel like you've been tossed to the side, or you've been given up on by Yah, or any of these feelings. So we want to put our minds back in the right place, take it away from where the enemy deceived us or tricked us to put it on, put it back in the right place. So let's take a look at Yah's word. So we're going to start in Psalms 34. In Psalms 34, we're going to look at verse 18 and 19. Let me see. I'm gonna do 17, 18, and 19. It says, Yah is near to them that are brokenhearted, and he delivers or rescues those of a contrite spirit, referring to your minds. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but yahuah delivers him out of them all. Look at what it says here. Many are the afflictions of the righteous. We were talking about peace the other day in the other devotion. And one of the things about peace is that when Messiah says, peace I give to you, not as the world gives. And then he says, you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. So there's this confidence in Yah, but then there's this realistic perspective. Many are the afflictions of the righteous. Realistic perspective. You shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. But not that he did it personally for himself, but that Yah delivered him out of them all and will deliver us as well. But these are promises during the afflictions. This is what a contrite mind directs their thoughts towards. This is what a broken heart places their confidence in Yah's ability to be saved. But look at what it says in the very beginning. Yah is near to them. He's near to them. Sometimes there's this feeling that comes upon us that we're alone. It comes on us like we're isolated and we're given up on, and it puts us in like a state of despair. It puts us in a state of fear. But it says here, Yah is near to those who are brokenhearted. Why? Because that's his duty. He understands what sin has done. Sin has destroyed humankind. It has destroyed our hearts, destroyed our capability to do good, to think good, to be good, to produce anything good. So he's near to them who have a broken heart, but has a contrite spirit, a mind that's willing to acknowledge the reality of their brokenness. See, grief is not something to run away from. Painful situations is not something to run away from. These are all things to acknowledge. These are all things that we need to come to terms with. Like, this is the reality of this. And then, in turn, we are supposed to put the reality of Yah's promises on those things. We're supposed to recognize the reality of his promises, the things that he's done already to show his existence, to show that his care, to show his concern for our well-being, for our needs, sending his son to die for us while we were his enemies. All of these things, it just gives us a little insight according to Yah's will for our lives. When situations is coming, his will didn't change. When situations is happening, his desire didn't change. So we need to look at all those things that he's done, the times that he saved us and delivered us and comforted us and strengthened us and been there for us and moved things out of the way and moved us through things. We have to remember all those things during times of grief. Just as David is. He's like, he's near when our hearts are broken. He's near when our minds are stirred, or when we're confused, or when we're stressed. Let's look at a few more verses. Psalms 147, looking at verse 3, it says, he heals the broken heart and he binds up their wounds. I want to talk about binding up, because he talks about healing the broken heart, but he says bind up the wounds. You know what that means? I mean, it means to wrap it up, to wrap up what's broken, to put bandages on something, right? What's the purpose of putting bandages, or what's the purpose of wrapping a wound up? It's so that way it can be in a certain environment to heal. It's not exposed to the germs. It's not exposed to things that it does not need. It is, you put on it what it needs, and then you wrap it up and allow it time to heal. But we keep thinking about getting rid of the symptoms. This generation is more like, get rid of the pain, get rid of, antidepressants, and get rid of the thoughts, and get rid of the struggles, and get rid of the physical pain, and get rid of the physical sickness. I want it gone today, rather than understanding that there's a process of healing that has to happen. The natural process of healing. Yah created this process. He created the process of the physical body healing over time. He created a process of the mind redirecting all of the deceptions, all of the thoughts, all of the insecurities and the pain and all of these things, and redirecting the mind back to the right place. Yah takes his time with putting everything back in order, but we have to be a part of that process. We can't hold on to the grief. We have to realize what it is, but realize what Yah wants to do with it. Let him bind up the wounds and allow it to start going through the process of healing. But we have to surrender it. We can't hold on to the grief constantly, not only throwing it back. When we throw it back in other people's face, we're actually reviving it for ourselves as well. You throw it back in someone else's face, you start to feel upset again. You start to feel the pain again. And it's a normal thing to do that when you are holding on to something, but when you are putting it down, and when you go to Yah and allow your emotions to be expressed, when you feel that pain and you allow yourself to feel the pain. Look what it says here in Matthew 5:4. Blessed are they that mourn. It's not that a person is mourning of their own doom. It's the reality. The reality of this painful situation causes me to mourn. But Yah says, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. You're not just going to be comforted. You have to acknowledge Yah's comfort. If I'm feeling pain and someone's trying to comfort me, like a person, and my wife is coming and trying to comfort me, and I keep pushing her away, like, how will I get comfort from this person? I can't get comfort if I keep pushing it away and focusing on the thing that's causing me pain. I have to surrender it, especially when it comes to Yah, especially when it comes to his word, especially when it comes to his promises, to give that grief to someone else, to give it, put it on Yah, in Yah's hands. Messiah made it very clear. Come to me, those who are heavy laden and burdened, and I will give you rest. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. He wants to take these burdens off of us. He wants to save us or rescue us from these heavy burdens. But we have to acknowledge the reality that, hey, this is a problem. This is a burden. I am not supposed to bear it. There's many times where we say we can handle it. I'm good. I've got it. All of this stuff. And then you start making yourself worse. Let's see where our hope is. Isaiah chapter 61. One of the very first things that Messiah was prophesied to work on was, it said, the spirit of Yah Elohim is upon me, because Yah hath anointed me to preach the good tidings unto the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and to open up the prisons to them that are bound. What is this referring to, the prisons that are bound? This is referring to the mind. Let me see if I can find another verse that emphasizes on the prison right here. It says, to open the blind eyes, Isaiah 42:7, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, them that sit in darkness out of the prison house. So you see here, Yahushua didn't go to actual jails. He didn't go to actual jails himself, but what he did do was recognize that people's minds were blinded by their own darkness, by their own pain, their own grief, their own false ideas, their own pride, their own selfishness. People were in prison. And Yah sent his son to come set us free. He who the son sets free is free indeed. We have to understand that these thoughts, these ideas that cripple us, are the enemy will utilize them to put us in a place that scripture refers to as prison, the prison, to sit in darkness. And Yah came us to get us out of these prison houses of our mind, which is why it says that Yah has come into a broken and contrite spirit, a contrite mind, a mind that is broken from self, broken from self-salvation. Like, you don't want to save yourself anymore. You don't want to fix yourself anymore. You need help. This is what Yah wants us to do during these times of grief and during these times of pain. Let's go to Revelation. What is Yah's greatest desire? That even in the very end, he's doing the same thing that he said he wanted to do in the beginning when he sent his son, to heal the brokenhearted, to comfort us. Look at what he says, Revelation 21, verse 4. It says, Elohim shall wipe away all the tears from their eyes. There shall be no more death, sorrow, crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for all the former things are passed away. So you see, the interesting thing is Yah is well aware of the death, the sorrow, the crying, the pain of this life. The beautiful thing is that once Yah himself, verse 3, Elohim himself shall be with them and be their Elohim. The first thing it says he wants to do is wipe away our tears and eyes. How much more do you think he wants to do it now? How much more do you think he wants to comfort us now through his spirit, through his word? Consolation is in his word. Trust in his promises is what deters the mind from our own direction, putting our mind on all of our pain. His promises moves our mind away from that and places it on something better, something that we can trust, something that we can be confident in, something that we can rejoice in. It doesn't mean that you have to walk around smiling, but it shows that when you trust in Yah, you have this confidence that Yah is going to fill your heart one day. As you are holding on to him, he will fill your heart. He will heal your heart because that is his promise. One of the things that's in our minds a lot of times is how big the situation is. And it's not, I'm not here to tell you that a situation of grief or pain is a small thing. But Yah tends to give us a comparison. Look at what he says here in Romans chapter 8, verse 18. He says, I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed, but where? Revealed in us. There's this thing that we think about ourselves in regards to the grief and the pain. We think that this pain or painful situation sometimes it's not us, sometimes it's another person causing the pain, and sometimes we think that the other person causing the pain is revealing a true revelation about yourself when they're just exerting their pain, when they're just showing their pain to you, when they're just responding from them having pain and not giving it to Yah. This is what Yah wants you to understand, that the pain and the suffering is not worthy to be compared to what Yah wants to reveal in you, from what Yah wants to show in you. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 1, looking at verse 3 and 4. It says, Blessed be Elohim, even the Father of our Master Yahushua Messiah, the Father of mercies. And then it says, the Elohim of all comfort. The Elohim of all comfort. It says here, who comforts us in all tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble. By the comfort wherein we ourselves are comforted of. This is talking about the prophets, this is talking about the disciples, the apostles, saying that Yah is going to comfort us in our tribulation and give us strength in that sense to comfort others. And then he says, he relates to us by saying, even we, the apostles, have been comforted by this from Elohim. Even we had to be comforted. Do you remember when Peter denied Yahushua? And it says that he was crying bitterly, like he was crying hard. Imagine what he thought about himself. Imagine what the enemy was making him think about and feel about himself. Imagine what he wanted to do to himself. You see what Judas did to himself. Look at what it says, verse 5. For as the sufferings of Messiah abound in us, so our consolation also abound by Messiah. It says here, whether we be afflicted, it is for your consolation and salvation. So it's very clear that even in our sufferings, that our consolation from Messiah increases as well. Are we paying attention to that comfort? Are we allowing Yahushua to console us in our sufferings? Or are we holding on to our sufferings and not and kind of closing the door to the freedom that Yah has? Sometimes in this life, growing up in the world where sometimes it's more comfortable, it's more normal. Let me say that. It's not comfort, there's not comfortable, but it's more normal for us to be in a state of pain and dealing with pain and fighting, because that's what we know. That's all we know. but to submit and surrender, to admit to the pain and to say, I don't want this pain. To not allow the pain to make you give others pain. To not allow the pain to cause you to, cause pain for others, whether it's with your words, physically, whatever it is. There has to be a realistic perspective in the mind that this is death. Holding on to my grief and pain is only going to bring me to death. It doesn't bring life. It doesn't bring peace. It doesn't bring joy. If it doesn't bring any of the fruits of the spirit, if it restricts one of those fruits of the spirit to come into the heart, to fill the mind, it is the enemy's tactic to get us to surrender ourselves to death, surrender ourselves to quit and say, I'm done giving myself to Yah and loving him with all of my might. I am now going to use my energy to try myself, to make myself feel better. Sometimes people get this fix. They feel good for making others feel bad. They feel good for making others feel pain. And Yah is telling us that he desires to console us, and that consolation is much better than what we can do for ourselves. It's much better than what we want to do as far as revenge is concerned. It's not the same. Yah does not want you to ignore your grief or ignore the reality of the pain or what's causing the pain. Sometimes it's somebody you love that's causing the pain. Yah is not telling you to ignore it. He's just telling you to deal with it properly. He's telling you to let him handle it, but he's also telling you to let him comfort you, to allow him to console you in those situations. Give him your thoughts when painful thoughts come into play. Give him your mind. Give him your motivation, your actions. Love him with all your heart, your mind, your soul. You'll see him surround you and cover you and hold you and lift you up. Let's go to a few more verses. Psalms chapter 30. Looking at verse 5, it says, for his anger endures but a moment, but in his favor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Now, it's not saying weeping and then it's just automatically going to happen. You may still weep when you surrender to Yah. You may still feel the pain when you surrender to Yah, but the more that you give yourself to him is the more he will give you his spirit, the more he will give you joy and peace and all those things. Let's go to John 16, verse 12. 16, verse 12. It says, I have yet many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. I'm not sure why I have that here. Oh, okay. I have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear that now. Sometimes when we are in grief, when we are in pain, sometimes we think that we have the answer, right? Sometimes we're like, I'm in grief because of this. I'm in grief because of you. I'm in grief because of this situation. I'm in pain because of this. Sometimes we think we have the answer. And I think a lot of times we don't step back to wait to see what Yah thinks about the situation, or is it possible that Yah could give you a different conclusion than what you have already about the pain, about the grief, where it comes from, where it originates from. Sometimes knowing this, knowing where it's from or why it happened, helps you deal with it better. We're gonna talk about a few examples after these few verses. I think it's very important for us to not always think that Yah has to tell us these things, because sometimes we can't bear what Yah wants to tell us at the moment. Sometimes we cannot handle what Yah wants us to see at the moment. Whether it's because of our mind, whether it's because of our pride or whatever, the pain is causing us to act up Yah does not want us to act up even more to the point where we hurt ourselves or hurt others. Yah does not want to move you out of the way because you decided to move on your pain or live in your struggle, in your grief. Psalms 9:9 says, yahuah also will be a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in times of trouble. Let's go to Lamentations. Lamentations is very important because this is a very grief-based book. Jeremiah dealing with the captivity of his people, destruction of his land, and even the destruction of this temple where he worshiped Yah. And so he's lamenting, and he realizes this: for yahuah will not cast off forever, but though he cause grief, yet will he have compassion according to the multitude of his mercies. For he does not afflict willingly, nor grieve the children of men. This is not something that he wants to do. It's either something that he has to do or something that he has to allow. Now, he has to do it or has to allow it for his purpose. He doesn't want this to go at things in this manner. He doesn't want to take this path. So it's interesting how we look at the grief that we deal with, and it says here, Yah will not cast off forever. He will not allow these things forever. Even though he will allow or cause grief, he will show compassion according to his mercies. But you have to be willing to receive it. It's different if you are not willing to receive it. If you blind yourself in your pain, if you blind yourself in your grief, then you won't be willing to receive it. Then you will be I would say you will feel the consequences of holding on to grief. Holding on to grief doesn't lead to joy. It doesn't lead to peace, nor does it lead to Yah's mercy. Holding on to pain leads to a person that's resentful, angry, wrathful. Isaiah 41. People keep talking about the verse in James where it says, don't let the sun go down in your wrath, pertaining to husband and wife. But even husband and wife, like, it's not about you being mad at your spouse. It's about you holding on to what's making you mad. You entertaining it, you festering in it, wallowing in it. It says here, you shall fan them, and the wind shall carry them away. The whirlwind shall scatter them, and you shall rejoice in Yahuwah, and shall glory in the Holy One of Israel. This is what he's saying. Even though this scattering and this is the punishment that Israel has to face. This is what's the reality of what we're going through today. Even though this is happening, Yah is going to cause us to rejoice. It's not going to last forever. So let me give you a few instances just to help us understand about the turning of our mind towards the right place in order to receive Yah's comfort or receive his consolation. I used this before. When a person is blind, it means that a person's mind can't see or understand what they ought to see. And because of that blindness, the person starts to act out, treat you a certain way, respond, lash out, because for some reason, the feeling that they have deceives them, causes them to think that it's okay to respond in certain ways. It's justified because I feel this way, right? So I was talking to a friend of mine and I said, if somebody steps on your shoe and looks at you in the face and he just steps on your shoe and walks by and doesn't say anything, you're going to feel like upset. You're going to feel like disgusted. Like, why did you do that? Where's your manners? Why you disrespect me like this? All these different realities in your mind. But if a person steps on your foot, if a blind person steps on your foot by accident, or even if a blind person steps on your foot and you find out they're blind, in your mind, it deters all of the anger and all of the response, and it allows your response to be in truth now, the reality is that this person is blind and they stepped on my shoe. A lot of times we allow grief, we allow pain, we allow struggle to blind us. And because of that blindness, we respond while we're blind. We yell, we fight, we attack, we hurt while we're blind. And sometimes the person or the recipient has to recognize the reality, or we'll end up in the same response, the same attitude. But Yah wants us to recognize the reality, whether the grief is coming to us or whether we are the one bestowing on others. The reality of what Yah says versus what's happening. Is Yah bigger than the situation? Is Yah bigger than the pain? Can Yah heal you? Has his son gone through more? And if so, we can trust in what he has done and how he overcame. He overcame so he can help us overcome. Why not run to the one that has overcome all these things in a worse magnitude than we have? Overcoming grief is based off of looking at the reality of the situation. I can't fix this world. I can't fix another person's heart. I can't fix a situation that I started. You can't fix yourself. Yah has to save us. His son has to rescue us from all of these situations, and he will console us. And he promised the things. He's proven himself to do what he says. And for those who are brokenhearted and grieving, he gives you promises to remind you that he will do what he says. And if he says he will comfort you and heal you and make you have joy again, he will. You have to hold on and give him the issue and stop holding on to it. Stop reacting to it. Stop thinking on it. You have to give it to him. It doesn't mean let the situation constantly roll over you. Sometimes you need that space to spend that time with Yah. Sometimes you need to separate from the situation so you can focus on Yah. But when you focus on Yah, what's the goal? The goal is for his will to be done. The goal is for him to be glorified. And the goal is to be in peace by being in him, to have joy by being in him, to receive your love back, to receive the ruah, the spirit, the fruits of the ruah that will pass our minds from all understanding. We won't even consider these things to be big enough to quench what Yah wants to do in us. So all I'm saying is praise Yah for his desire to heal our brokenhearted, to free our minds from blindness and from causing our actions and our words to be transformed, to show grace, to be representations of who Yah is, to the point where Yah sent his son and his son died for those who were currently his enemies. So we ought to understand when we feel like someone is causing pain because he's my enemy. Yah died for those who were his enemies, who spit on him, who attacked him. So we ought to have a similar response. It doesn't mean you have to stay in an abusive situation. It just means you have to do things the way Yah did and allow his name to be glorified. So praise Yah. I hope that this comforts or encourages you to run to Yah, run to his word and his promises. So shalom, everyone.